So our next speaker is fantastic. We're going to have some continued energy. We're going to continue to explore this diversity conversation. We're getting to a generational conversation now. So hacking the cyber diversity challenge, a generational perspective. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Christine Izuakor, who's the Senior Manager, Global Security Strategy and Awareness at United Airlines. Christine.
10 years ago, I graduated high school and I walked onto campus at the University of Houston with this burning desire to become an optometrist. See, when I was about 15 years old, I was told that by the time I was 21, I'd be considered legally blind. And so I wanted to do something about it. And while I had great intentions with this goal, I quickly realized that, one, I wasn't too fond of college-level math, specifically calculus. Two, I hated the idea of examining other people's body parts, even if it was just eyeballs. And three, I had no clue how I would make a fashion statement out of scrubs. All very important considerations. What I did know is that I really wanted to pursue something that had greater meaning, that had purpose, that lit a spark in me. And so I set out on this journey to find something that did just that and could pay my bills, of course. Now, I ended up doing random career exploring, taking random electives, and I came across a cybersecurity elective that I absolutely loved. That elective turned into a bachelor's degree in security management, a master's degree in information system security, and a PhD in security engineering, eventually leading to where I am now as a part-time professor and as a professional at United. Now, a question I get quite often is how? How did I find this purpose? How did a minority with no examples, no role models in cybersecurity, in technology, in corporate America even, get to this point? And the answer is quite simple. All it took was a single experience, that single elective, to ignite that spark in me and set me down this path. Now, I know I'm not alone in this random entry into security that I experienced. Even for people in the room today, how many people grew up as kids wanting to be in the cybersecurity industry, by show of hands? No one, because it just didn't happen, it didn't exist. But as we look at where the future is heading and where the next generation is going, that is now shifting. We're meeting a generation that is more globally conscious and more diverse than any generation we've previously seen. We're also meeting a generation that is pursuing higher education in numbers we haven't seen in the past. We're meeting a generation that is taking advantage of this free information age, where there are so many resources online that people can use to build skills in cybersecurity. People gaining access to course curriculums or college-level curriculums without paying college-level prices. And this next generation is really taking advantage of that. We're meeting a generation that is growing up seeing all of the mega breaches in the news every week. And not only that, but there's also a personal connection now. It's not just about businesses. It's not just about corporations anymore. And when we talk about finding that purpose and finding something that you're really passionate about, what better way than something that has that personal connection? And so all of these shifts continue to influence the way that the next generation views our industry. And all of these shifts provide an opportunity for us to really raise brand awareness and raise awareness of the opportunities that there are in this industry for the next generation. And so I really believe that we need to take advantage of these shifts and some of these unique characteristics in order to not only build out our future talent pipeline, but build one that is more diverse. And so the question then becomes, how do we ignite that spark in people of all different backgrounds, genders, generations, economic status? How do we begin to ignite that spark in people so that they know that this industry exists and that they're interested in it? Well, I believe there are 4 key myths that are very prevalent in our industry today that we need to bust in order to move forward. The first of those myths is that cyber degree programs and AI will solve all of our talent challenges. Now, make no mistake, I'm not saying that these things are not important. They are absolutely critical in moving our industry forward. But if we are not deliberate in making our solutions inclusive by design, the lack of diversity that we see in this industry will continue to mimic what we see in STEM. And the same people will continue to get access to the same opportunities. Instead, we need to do a better job of understanding and identifying what are the barriers to entry for different minority groups. Why don't people see this as a path? For me, as a first-generation Nigerian in America, the answer was simple. My culture did not support this as a career path. I was raised to believe that success meant you were either a doctor or an engineer. There was no in between. And that's just my story. There are so many different barriers, no matter how big or small, no matter how isolated or systemic, that prevent different groups from seeing this as a path. And I think the more we can begin to understand those, the more we can help people overcome those challenges. The second myth is that years of formal experience is what determines value. Another area where I know in our industry, experience is absolutely important. And I'm not trying to downplay that. But it's not years of experience alone that determines the value of contributions. With all of the fast-paced changes and evolutions going on in our industry, we are not going to get ahead of them by doing what we've always done. And so a fresh perspective combined with that valuable experience and that historical knowledge will work wonders for us. And that really takes cross-generational knowledge sharing and collaboration across generations in order to make that happen. The second piece to that, though, is also we're not going to get ahead of our talent challenges by assuming that every single position requires 5 to 10 years of experience, which is what we see a lot out there. Instead, we need to focus more on creating opportunities for entry into this industry. And also, focus more on creating a career line of sight for the next generation, which is something that is very important, be it through cyber rotation programs, through internships, different ways that we can begin to create that path for people. And the third piece, something extremely important, is how we view qualifications, what we consider to be the requirements to make a strong security professional. And I had a very interesting conversation with one of our interns from Year Up. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Year Up, it's an organization that is dedicated to closing the opportunity divide by providing young urban adults with 6 months of business and technical training and 6 months of internship experience. And I had this interesting conversation with my intern that really shed some light to some of the work we still have to do in our industry. So she went to this cybersecurity conference in Chicago, and it was focused on diversity in cybersecurity. And when I asked her about her experience, she was super excited. She talked about all of the workshops and the keynote speakers she listened to and the networking, and all of that was great. But when I asked her about her experience in the career fair portion, and this is your typical career fair, companies have set up booths, they have their recruiters there, they have their professionals there, and they're really trying to attract cybersecurity talent. And so I asked her about her experience, and she said something along the lines of, well, people didn't really take me seriously because I wasn't pursuing a degree like most of the other attendees. And I thought, here we have a young African-American woman who is super passionate about cybersecurity, who has completed her training to get the fundamentals, who was completing an internship on the cybersecurity team of a Fortune 100 company, and yet she was still being overlooked. Now, when you think about it, we have organizations, nonprofits, government agencies, really trying to help solve some of these challenges by creating programs, whether degree or non-degree, to help build talent. Yet we have corporations still sticking with minimum degree requirements, traditional qualifications. And so my challenge to you is given everything that I've shared about this next generation, especially in getting creative and taking advantage of the free knowledge out there, do those same qualifications still make sense today? Or do we need to take a second look at that? The next myth is that thou must code and be super technical in order to succeed. So this is another one. Kim touched on this as well, but our industry needs an extreme makeover. I really feel like our image is probably one of the greatest barriers to entry, especially for minorities. And as said, the hackers and hoodies image has to go. And that is no offense to those hackers and hoodies, because I know they're out there and they're brilliant and we love that brilliance, but we're not all hackers and hoodies. I don't even own a hoodie. Instead, we need to make sure that we are positioning ourselves and branding ourselves in a way that is more inclusive and speaks to all of the opportunities that there are in cybersecurity. Some that require some technical experience, yes, but some that don't. Whether it's through social media, mainstream media, university and corporate partnerships, we can be very deliberate about the way that we begin to have these conversations and present ourselves. And the last myth, what we do is top secret. We can't talk about our work. Also, some potential truth to this one as well, but don't use it as a cop-out. The next generation cannot be what they can't see, and diversity breeds diversity. And so we need to continue to have these conversations and share the work that we do, and not just the hacking stuff, but everything, so that people can get excited about this and join the wave. But they can't have that example and they can't do that if we don't learn to speak up about what we do in ways that still preserve our information. And not just at RSA. This is a great event and I'm super excited that this is happening, but it needs to go beyond, because everyone who is in this room is already in the cybersecurity industry for the most part, right? So I'm gonna wrap up with the results of a quick informal survey that I threw out recently. And the question that I asked was, what are some ways that we can solve some of our talent challenges? Now, I tracked the responses that I got, the unique responses, and the demographics that they came from. While depicting the demographics that make up majority of our industry today, these are some of the responses. And I mean, great ideas, focus on diversity, degree programs, things that we've talked about here today. But when I open the results up to include all different backgrounds and all different economics, these are what the unique results look like. And I think that speaks volumes to where we are as an industry today and where we have the potential to go. Now at United, we are proud of the fact that we have probably one of the most diverse cybersecurity teams you could ever find, with 40% of our team comprised of women, all different ethnicities, backgrounds, generations, sexual orientations, you name it, we have it. And for that, we are a much stronger team. But I also point out that the value there is not in one of those specific characteristics, right? It's never about the color of our skin or our gender or any of those things. It's about the unique perspective that each of those characteristics brings to the table. And so at a very basic level, if you don't take anything else away from what I'm saying, if you have to take one thing away, remember that it is diverse perspective that provides value. Again, it is the diverse perspective that ultimately provides value. And if we want to secure that, we have to find out how to ignite that spark in people from all walks of life. And so I would encourage all of you to continue to think about that. I firmly believe that within this industry, we have all of the flame and fire and excitement in the world. And just imagine that there are millions of little, matches running around out there in the world who are unaware of the cybersecurity industry and the opportunities that exist here, or are unaware of what their next steps might be. And it is our responsibility to find those matches and light them up. Now, in closing, I never forgot about that terrified 15-year-old girl who thought she'd be blind by the time she was 21. I'm happy to say that today I am 28. I can see very clearly that the future of cybersecurity is bright, not just for the next generation, but for all generations. And it's up to us to leverage those sparks again to ignite this industry and create a workforce that is diverse. Thank you.